Sir, orbital overlapping is not done.
That we will discuss today. Types of covalent bond. Types of covalent bond. So what exactly are we going to discuss under types of covalent bond? See, to understand the concept of types of covalent bond, I'll just consider some examples, and under the examples you will be able to know that what are the types of covalent bond. Say we have got hydrogen atom combining with another hydrogen atom. So we know that hydrogen atom has got one electron in the valence shell, and because it has got one electron in its valence shell, we can write the hydrogen atom as 1s1 and this also as 1s1. So they will be bonding with each other because of the fact that the s orbitals in both hydrogen atoms have one unpaired electron each. So we can write the orbital of hydrogen as this and another as this. So when they overlap with each other, you will come across this type of overlapping. Now conventionally, z-axis is considered as the internuclear axis. As we can see that according to orbital overlap concept, whenever bond is formed, the bonding is due to overlapping of half-filled orbitals. All those orbitals that have got an unpaired electron in them are only involved in bond formation. So in hydrogen atom, we have one unpaired electron, and therefore it is going to combine with another hydrogen atom which also has one unpaired electron, and both the unpaired electrons exist in s orbital and s being spherically shaped. So we can see that the region of overlapping, this is referred to as the region of overlapping. Okay, so it is lying on the internuclear axis. So z is the internuclear axis. So we can see that there is a single electron cloud symmetrical about the internuclear axis, and such type of bond is referred to as sigma bond. Sigma bond. So what is a sigma bond? Sigma bond is a type of covalent bond which is formed due to overlap of two orbitals on the internuclear axis. The sigma bond comprises of a single electron cloud symmetrical about the internuclear axis, and relatively sigma bonds are stronger bonds because the extent of overlapping in sigma bond is relatively large. Extent of overlapping means the region under which both of them have common electron cloud is relatively large. So that is the example of hydrogen overlapping with hydrogen. Now let us say,
Sir, that one is what symbol?
which one? This one?
Yes, sir.
This is a symbol for sigma bond. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sigma bond. Now suppose hydrogen is allowed to combine with fluorine. So hydrogen is 1s1 as usual, and fluorine is 1s2, 2s2, 2p5. So rather than writing 2p5, we can also write it as 2px2, 2py2, 2pz1, so that it is clear to us that in which particular orbital actually lies the unpaired electron. So for hydrogen atom, as usual, the unpaired electron is present in s orbital. This is paired, this is paired, these two are also paired. So p orbitals, remember, are always mutually perpendicular to each other. So let us draw all the three p orbitals. Say this is pz, this is px, this is py. Now pz has got an unpaired electron. Px and py have paired up electrons. So obviously those which have paired up electrons are not going to overlap, are not going to take part in any kind of overlapping. So only those orbitals will take part in overlapping which have unpaired electrons in them. So again we see that this s orbital overlaps with the pz and forms sigma bond again. The other two, even if you don't draw, it doesn't matter, because the other two are not taking part in bond formation as they have paired up electrons. So this type of bond is again a sigma bond, but it is called sp sigma bond. So you can see in both bonds that we have drawn, what is common is the type of overlapping. So in both, the overlapping is taking place on the internuclear axis, and therefore they are sigma bonds only. One of them is SS sigma bond, the other is SP sigma bond. Is it done? Can I proceed? Yes or no? Yes? Tell me if you have
Yes, sir.
completed.
Yes, sir.
Complete.
Okay. So then we talk about further bonding between fluorine and fluorine. So let us see what happens when fluorine combines with another fluorine atom. Fluorine atom combining with another fluorine atom to form fluorine molecule. So just now, as we have seen, that fluorine is 1s2, 2s2, 2px2, 2py2, 2pz1, and same will be the second fluorine as well. So in both the fluorine atoms, where the electrons are present, unpaired electrons are present in which orbital? Yes, in which orbital of
PZ.
fluorine atoms? So 2pz. So which means that if we draw the all 2p together, okay, so pz has got unpaired electrons, px and py have paired up electrons. Now this is for one fluorine atom. Similarly, the other fluorine atom will also have the same kind of orbital diagram. So when they approach near each other via the internuclear axis, you will have again a sigma bond. Why? Because the region of overlapping is on the internuclear axis. Whereas the other p orbitals will not be involved in any bond formation because they have paired up electrons. So this type of bond is again sigma bond, but what kind of sigma bond it is? It is pp sigma bond. The overlapping is taking place between two pz. So hence in all the three cases, whether it is hydrogen single bond hydrogen, hydrogen fluorine, or fluorine fluorine sigma bond, all of them are sigma bonds. So single bonds are always sigma bonds, but obviously the nature of sigma bond is different. In case of H bond H, it was a SS sigma bond. In case of hydrogen fluoride, it is sp sigma bond. And in case of fluorine, it is pp sigma bond. I hope this much is clear to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So draw this much, then we'll proceed further. Is it completed? May I proceed?
Completed, sir.
Okay. Now we move on to the fourth example, where we will come across a different type of overlapping, and we will call that type of overlapping as pi bond. So when is the pi bond formed? Let us try to understand that. So let me take the example of oxygen overlapping with oxygen to form oxygen molecule. So as we can see that oxygen has atomic number of 8, 1s2, 2s2, 2px2, 2py1, 2pz1. Okay, so same is the electronic configuration of the second oxygen as well. Which means that out of the 3 p orbitals, pz has unpaired electron, py has unpaired electron, but px has paired up electron. Okay. So the other one also will have same type, unpaired electron, unpaired electron. Now one thing you must remember, that suppose this and this wants to overlap. The unpaired electrons present in them must have opposite spins. Okay, so they should not have same spin, because according to orbital overlap concept, whenever orbitals overlap with each other, the electrons present in them must have opposite spins. So accordingly, when they overlap with each other, this is going to overlap to form, as usual, a sigma bond. But these two also have unpaired electrons in them. And remember that they are no longer present on the axis. They are perpendicular to the internuclear axis Z. This is Z axis. So what we can do is sidewise overlapping. Sidewise overlapping, which can be also represented in this manner. This is called sidewise overlap. The sidewise overlapping has two electron clouds, one above and the other below, not on the internuclear axis as we have been getting so far in sigma bond. But the sidewise overlapping, even if there are two electron clouds, but both the clouds are very, very small in extent of overlapping, and that is why pi bonds are very weak bonds. The third p orbital will not overlap because of the fact that they have paired up electrons. So it means that in between oxygen molecule, the two oxygen atoms are combining with each other through a double bond. We write oxygen double bond oxygen. Out of the two bonds, one of them is sigma bond and the other is called a pi bond. So pi bond, one single pi bond will comprise of two electron clouds. So don't think that I am drawing two lines, so that will mean two pi bonds are there. Pi bond is one only, one above and one below.
Sir,
So this is, yes.
sir, I am little confused. Why did we take 2py1 and 2pz? 2pz.
Because when you are filling up the 4 electrons, because oxygen is electronic configuration is what? 8, na? So it is 1s2, 2s2, 2p4. So how do you distribute 4 electrons? 1, 2, 3, and 4, isn't it? This is
Okay,
how
sir.
you are putting the 4 electrons. So 2 of them will be having unpaired electron or not?
Yes, sir.
So therefore Py and Pz will have unpaired electrons. Understood?
Yes, sir.
And you can put paired up electron here also, here also. That is not hard and fast rule. But this can be X, this can be Y, or this can be Y, this can be X. But this should be fixed as Z. That should be fixed for Z. X and Y, anyone can be X, anyone can be Y. Clear?
Yes, sir.
So hence, when we talk about a double bond, remember always that in a double bond, one of the bonds is sigma and the other is pi. But whenever there is a single bond, then it must be sigma always. Understood? Yes. Drawn for oxygen.
We're done.
Okay. Now let us move on to nitrogen molecule, N2. This will be the 5th example. Nitrogen plus nitrogen combined to form N2 molecule. Atomic number of nitrogen is 7. 1s2, 2s2, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1, and that is also same. So total of how many unpaired electrons are there now?
3.
3. So this is for one nitrogen. One, 2, and 3. This is another nitrogen. 1, 2, and 3. So as usual, this is going to form the sigma bond by overlapping on the internuclear axis. This is going to form pi bond because both of them are unpaired. So they will do sidewise overlapping. The last pair also will form pi bond because that also contains pair of unpaired electrons. So accordingly, nitrogen is triply bonded with another nitrogen. So when we draw a triple bond, as you can see, only one of them can be sigma and the rest two are pi bonds. So in nitrogen triple bond nitrogen, two of them are pi bonds and one of them is sigma bond. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what type of bond is more stronger? Is it sigma bond or pi bond?
Sigma.
Why? Why do you think sigma
Z.
bond is more stronger?
Area
The
of
line
overlapping
of
is
Z.
more.
Hmm? Why do you think? Sigma bond has a single electron cloud and pi electron has two electron clouds. But why do you think then sigma bond is more stronger than that of pi bond?
Area of their overlapping is more.
Extent of overlapping. You must use the term extent of overlapping in sigma bond is more. Understood? So extent of overlapping is the proper term for explaining why sigma bond is stronger than pi bond. Please mute yourself. I'm getting some background noise. So complete this one, then I'll give you the definition of sigma and pi bond. Can I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we classify the covalent bond, depending upon the criteria, we can classify covalent bond into different types. So far we have discussed that covalent bond can be classified on the basis of polarity of the bond into two types, polar and non-polar. Here also we are writing the types of covalent bond, but here we will have to write on the basis of overlap. So there are two types as we have just now discussed. So type 1 is called sigma bond. sigma bond. This type of bond is formed by the end-to-end overlap of bonding orbitals along the internuclear axis. And what is the internuclear axis that is considered? Z axis. Hence, it is also called head-on overlap or axial overlap. Head-on overlap or axial overlap. This can be formed by overlap of SS, SP or PP orbitals. So S and S overlap is this. S and P overlap is this. P and P overlap is this. SS, SP, it is relatively a stronger bond due to greater extent of overlapping. It is relatively a stronger bond due to greater extent of overlap. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So then we move on to the second type, that is pi bond. This type of overlapping involves sidewise or lateral overlap. Between two p orbitals. It comprises of two electron clouds, one above and the other below the internuclear axis. One above and the other below the internuclear axis. Due to poor extent of overlapping, pi bond is a weaker bond. The formation of pi bond is not possible without a sigma bond. But the reverse is true. You can have a sigma bond without pi bond, but you cannot have a pi bond without sigma bond. First, sigma bond will be formed, then only the pi bond will be formed. The example of pi bond is this. So there are two electron clouds, one above and the other below. But both the electron clouds above and below are very small in size.
Sir, will it be with or without?
What you have written due to which one?
Sir, the
The
formation of
formation of pi bond is not possible without. Without a sigma.
Sir,
Mm,
so sidewise and lateral overlap are same.
yes.
Okay, sir.
हो गया?
Yes, sir.
So this is very important to understand that formation of sigma bond can occur independently, but formation of pi bond is not possible without sigma bond. If there is a single bond, it has to be a sigma bond. If there is a double bond, 1 sigma 1 pi, and if there is a triple bond, 1 sigma 2 pi. So based on that, try out this question. Calculate the number of sigma and pi bonds in the following. I hope the structure is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So try it out and tell me how many sigma and how many pi bonds do you find in this structure?
Sir, 9 sigma bond
9 sigma.
and 9 pi bond.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
See anyone who is not able to understand how 9 sigma and 9 pi? All are clear how 9 sigma and 9 pi has come?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So 9 sigma, 9 pi. Next, let me write the molecule in condensed form, CH3COH. So it will be difficult for you to understand the number of sigma and pi bonds until unless you open up the structure. How to draw the structure? You have to keep in mind that the valency of oxygen is 2, valency of carbon
Sir.
is 4. Yes.
Sir, my internet was slow, sir. Actually, can you explain that how sigma 9 pi that came?
If there is a triple bond, how many pi bonds you should count?
2.
2. So 2 plus 2, 4, plus 1, 5, plus 2, 7, plus 2, 9. Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Understood?
Yes, sir.
Sigma, is it clear?
Sir, sigma also no same, na?
Sigma is 1 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now I was talking about CH3COH. So oxygen's valency is 2, carbon's valency is 4, hydrogen's valency is 1. So keeping in mind that fact, you have to draw the structure so that everyone's valency is maintained. So hydrogen should always be at corners. This is the meaning of CH3. Then C double bond O, because oxygen's valency is 2. Then O, then H. So you see, everyone's valency is maintained. Is it understood?
Yes, sir.
Now it is easier to calculate the sigma and pi bond. Try it out.
Sir, 7 sigma bond and 1 pi bond.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 sigma and pi is only 1. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Number 3. Tell me how many sigma and how many pi are there? Everyone should try
12
this one. 12 sigma
and 3 pi.
and 3 pi. See, others are getting the same result or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So 12 sigma and 3 pi. Is it understood now?
Yes, sir.
What about hydrogen cyanide? Valency of hydrogen is 1. Valency of carbon is 4. Valency of nitrogen is 3.
Sir, 2 sigma 2 pi.
2 sigma 2 pi.
2 sigma 2 pi. How did you open up the structure, keeping in mind their valencies?
Sir, carbon in the middle.
This one, na?
Yes, sir.
So there are 2 sigma and 2 pi. Yes? ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So without sigma bond, pi bond formation is not possible, but without pi bond, sigma bond is possible. So that has to be taken care of. Second point of difference, sigma bond has greater extent of overlapping, therefore it is a stronger bond. Pi bond has poor extent of overlapping, so therefore it is a weaker bond. Next thing, the pi bond comprises of how many electron clouds?
2.
2 electron clouds. And what are the location of the electron clouds? Above and below the internuclear axis, isn't it? And what is the number of electron clouds in sigma bond?
1.
1 single electron cloud. But what is the location of the sigma bond?
On
Sir,
the internet.
On the internuclear axis, and it is symmetrical about the internuclear axis. What is the meaning of the term symmetrical about the internuclear axis? Means above the axis and below the axis, you will see that electron cloud distribution is same. So after discussion of, you can say, sigma and pi bond and how many bonds a particular atom is supposed to form, we can correlate it with the electronic configuration. We have seen that hydrogen has a single electron, and therefore the valency or number of bonds hydrogen can form is 1. Similarly, we saw oxygen was 1s2, 2s2, 2px2, 2py1, 2pz1. So how many unpaired electrons do you find in oxygen? It is 2. So valency is 2. Nitrogen 1s2, 2s2, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1. So number of unpaired electrons are 3. So valency is also 3. So we see that the valency is determined by the number of unpaired electrons present in an atom. But if it is so, then let us consider 3 more atoms who do not follow this criteria. Suppose we have beryllium, boron, and carbon. Beryllium has electronic configuration of 1s2, 2s2. How many unpaired electrons do you find in beryllium?
0.
0. So accordingly, valency should be 0. But beryllium shows valency of 2. Boron 1s2, 2s2, 2px1, 2py0, 2pz0 because its atomic number is 5. So as you can see, there is only one unpaired electron and valency of boron should be 1. But in fact, boron is found to show trivalent. Carbon 1s2, 2s2, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz0. So if you count on the number of unpaired electrons, it should be having valency of 2. But it's a well-known fact that carbon shows valency of how much? 4. So for the first 3 type of atoms, the valency is same as that of number of unpaired electrons. But for the last 3 types, the valency has not been found to be same as that of number of unpaired electrons. So how can you explain the valency of beryllium, boron, and carbon on the basis of the number of unpaired electrons? So that we are going to discuss by making the reference of carbon. Have you understood the problem? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So valency should be same as that of number of unpaired electrons, but carbon, beryllium, and boron type elements are not showing the expected behavior. So question ta likha, though carbon has only 2 unpaired electrons, in its ground state, electronic configuration.
Sir, can you repeat the that topic that you did just now? I was disconnected for a few times, for some time.
Okay, I'll repeat it. Let me complete the question. Though carbon has only 2 unpaired electrons in its ground state, electronic configuration, but it is tetravalent. What is the meaning of tetravalent?
4 valency.
Valency of 4. Explain. So what I discussed was, if you look at the ground state electronic configuration of carbon, carbon has atomic number of 6. So it should be 1s2, 2s2, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz0. How many unpaired electrons do you find in the ground state of carbon? Tell me.
2.
2. So accordingly, it should be divalent. Its valency should be 2, because in general, we have been seeing that valency is determined by the number of unpaired electrons present. But in reality, what is the valency of carbon being found? Yes, 4. So this can be explained on the basis of theory of excitation. Now, what is the meaning of theory of excitation? It means that elements like carbon, beryllium, and boron do not combine with other atoms in their ground state. Before combining with other atoms, they gain energy from outer source, and during this process, one of the electrons from 2s jumps to the 2pz, and this is called excited state electronic configuration. So excited state electronic configuration of carbon is 1s2, 2s1, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1. So how many unpaired electrons do you find here? After the electron gets excited, one of the electrons from 2s jumps to 2pz, and thereafter it combines with other atoms. But atoms like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, they will combine with other atoms in their ground state. But atoms like beryllium, boron, and carbon will undergo excitation first, and then only they are going to combine. Carbon, before combining with other atoms, absorbs energy and gets excited, in which one of the electrons from 2s jumps to 2p to make a total of 4 unpaired electrons. Hence, carbon is tetravalent. See whether this is understood or not. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So carbon, beryllium, and boron type elements never combine with other atoms in their ground state. Before combining with other atoms, they undergo excitation, and during this excitation, one of the electrons jump to the higher energy state, thereby making more number of unpaired electrons. And as in case of carbon, we see that number of unpaired electrons after getting excited becomes 4. So hence carbon is tetravalent. And same way you can explain it for boron and beryllium as well. let us see what happens in case of beryllium. Have you written it down? Can I rub it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Beryllium, whose atomic number is 4 in ground state, is 1s2, 2s2. So there is no unpaired electron. So accordingly, the valency should be 0. But as I said, it has 2px, 2py, 2pz also present because it is second shell. So second shell, both 2s and 2p exists. But in ground state, as we can see, that there are no electrons present in 2p. But if energy is absorbed during the bond formation, one of the electrons from 2s jumps to 2px. And in such a case, the number of unpaired electrons are how many now? Tell me.
2.
2. Same way in case of boron, whose atomic number is 5. Ground state is 1s2, 2s2, 2px1, 2py0, 2pz0. But in excited state, again, one of the electrons from 2s will jump to 2py. Thereby making total of how many unpaired electrons?
3.
The valency will be 3. I hope this is clear now.
Yes, sir.
Someone was asking, was not clear due to the internet problem. Now is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is what we discussed, that in case of atoms like beryllium, boron, and carbon, what you expect and what you actually get are different. Valency cannot be explained on the basis of ground state electronic configuration. So in that case, we'll have to make use of excited state configuration. Done?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So explanation of tetravalency of carbon has been done properly. But another problem now comes. So that you need to understand that carbon in ground state has configuration of 1s2, 2s1, 2px1, 2py1, and 2pz. So we can explain the tetravalency of carbon. But suppose in formation of methane, carbon is supposed to invite 4 separate hydrogen atoms to overlap with s orbitals of hydrogen. Now, if this is the electronic configuration, valence shell electronic configuration of carbon, listen very carefully. It's a very important concept. So 2s1, 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1. So this is the configuration of carbon. Now, if it combines with 4 separate hydrogens, all of which have 1s1 configurations, then we know that whenever s orbital is involved, it is always going to form sigma bond. Now, if the hydrogen atom overlaps with 2s, then of course the type of bonding will be SS. If these three combine, the type of bonding will be SP. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Whose atomic orbitals are these? Whose atomic orbitals are these? 1s1, 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 1s1.
Hydrogen.
How many hydrogen atoms are there?
4.
4 hydrogen. And whose electronic configuration is this?
Carbon.
Carbon.
Single carbon, isn't it? So why carbon invites 4 hydrogen atoms? Why not 3 or 2 or 1? Why carbon invites 4 hydrogen atoms?
To complete its unpaired electrons.
Because the number of hydrogen atoms invited depends upon how many unpaired electrons carbon has got, isn't it? Yes or
sir.
no? Okay. Now we see that if carbon invites these 4 hydrogen atoms, then the type of bonds are sigma, no doubt. But out of the 4 bonds formed, one of the bond is different from that of the other 3 bonds, because SS sigma bond should be different from that of SP sigma bond, isn't it? Yes or no?
Sir, can you repeat right now what you said?
See, what I am saying is, if you look at the 4 types of bonds carbon is forming with the 4 hydrogen atoms, one of them is completely different than the other 3 or not?
Yes, sir.
In what respect they are different?
Sir, it is SS.
It is SS, whereas
It
the
is
rest are
sigma
SP.
bond. Yes.
Okay. Now, which bond do you think should be shorter in length?
Sir, the SS one.
SS should be shorter in length. And one more important thing, that because these 3 p orbitals are mutually perpendicular to each other, so what should be the bond angle that should be formed in between these 3?
Sir, 90.
90 degree, because mutually perpendicular means 90 degree. So this is what is expected. So what is expected? One of the carbon hydrogen bond length should be shorter as compared to the other hydrogen carbon bond length. These 3 should be equal in bond length, and this should be slightly shorter. And the angle made by these 3 should be 90 degrees, isn't it? Have you understood what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now come to the reality. So in reality, it has been found out that the shape of methane is tetrahedral. All carbon hydrogen bond lengths are exactly equal. And not only that, the bond angles are also equal, and none of them are 90 degree. 109 degree, 28 minutes. So what was expected was 3 of the bond lengths should be similar and 1 should be shorter, and the bond angle should be 90 degree in between. But the reality is completely different from that of what is expected. The reality is all carbon hydrogen bond lengths are exactly equal, and the bond angles are 109 degree, 28 minutes. Understood? Anyone having doubt up to this much, you can clear it out. Is it understood what was expected and what actually we are getting?
Sir, I wanted to know why the bond angle is 90 degree between S and P orbital. Which look.
These three bond angles, because when we talk about p orbitals, are not they mutually perpendicular to each other?
Yes, sir.
So if they are mutually perpendicular to each other and if they are forming carbon hydrogen bonds, so the bond angles should be 90 degree or not?
Yes, sir.
But what is the actual bond angle found to be?
109 degree 28 minutes.
109 degree 28 minutes. Apart from that, all the carbon hydrogen bond lengths are exactly found to be equal. Are they supposed to be equal?
So theoretically not.
Theoretically, three of them should be equal, fourth one should be different, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Why fourth one should be different?
Sir, cause the angle between the fourth one is lateral and it's
No. Nothing to do with angle. Why do you think this should be shorter with respect to the other three?
sir, because that one is a sigma bond.
All are
Other-
sigma bonds. All are
No, sir,
sigma
the-
bonds.
Huh? Oh,
All are sigma bonds. There is no pi bond here. So why do you think this should be shorter with respect to the other three? Yes, anyone? Who can try out? Why do you think?
Sir, because sir, in 2s1 and 1s1, it is two spheres are combining, and in the others, they're double and one sphere is combining.
Very good. So that is the main reason. So one of the bonds is due to overlap of s orbital, isn't it? And the other three are formed due to overlap of s and p. So of course, s and s are two spheres, and s and p are one sphere and one dumbbell. So therefore, as dumbbell has a longer size, so therefore sp sigma bonds will be longer with respect to s sigma bonds. Understood?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is it clear, everyone? Bond length
Yes, sir.
has nothing to do with bond angle. Bond angle is a different aspect and bond length is a different aspect. So we were expecting that the actual structure of methane should have one carbon hydrogen shorter with respect to the other three carbon hydrogen bonds. And the bond angles between carbon hydrogen bonds should be 90 degree because it is the p orbitals which are mutually perpendicular to each other which are involved in bond formation. But the reality is completely different. And what is the reality? The reality is all the carbon hydrogen bond lengths are exactly equal and the bond angles in between are none of them are 90 degree. They all are equal and the bond angle is found to be 109 degree 28 minutes. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, why is it so that what you are expecting and what you are actually getting are different from each other? So to explain that, next day, we will discuss one of the most important concepts of the valence bond theory, which is called, remember, hybridization. Hybridization. Now, this term hybridization is generally a common term used in biology, in animal husbandry, or even in botany. When you want to get better quality crops or better quality animals, we do hybridization of two different species. Say, for example, horse is crossbred with donkey, do you know what is the product named as?
Sir,
Then mule, very good. Now, why this hybridization of horse and donkey being done? It is because horse is very swift. Okay, but at the same time, horse is very prone to diseases. Donkey at the same time is very slow, but it is resistant to disease. That means it can easily adjust itself with the environment. So therefore, it is thought that why don't we intermix, or why don't we hybrid these two species so that both the good characteristic of horse and donkey can be obtained in the mule, and that is why we get mule, which contains good characteristics of both horse and donkey. Especially in the same way, similarly in the same way, in plant husbandry also, in botany also, those who are dealing with agriculture, the crops are carried out with hybridization so that the good qualities of separate crops can be obtained. So same concept has been utilized to explain the shapes of certain molecules like methane that could not be explained on the basis of simple valence bond theory. Simple valence bond theory mote ami methanol structure kiba beleg expect korisilu, but reality is something different from that of what is expected. So to explain such shapes, the concept of hybridization has been introduced. So why all the carbon hydrogen bond lengths in methane have been found to be equal? Why the bond angles are coming to be 109 degree 28 minutes and all bond angles are also equal, though the expected values were something different. Expected bond lengths were also found to be different. So that we will discuss under hybridization. Is it understood?
Yes, sir.
So if it is asked, though we have not started what is hybridization, if it is asked that why is the concept of hybridization required, so we simply have to answer that the simple valence bond theory could not explain shapes of some molecules, and to explain such shapes, the concept of hybridization is required. Understood? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
yes,
So
sir.
hybridization is introduced to explain shapes of some molecules which could not be explained on the basis of simple valence bond theory. So next day, we will discuss the hybridization, which is a very, very important topic in chemistry. Okay. So next day we shall continue. Thank you. Good night, all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.